Welcome back to Consider This. Melisa and Sharaad here with you tonight. Now, last week, a news report highlighted an Orang Asli community from the Jakun tribe in Pahang who were forced to scavenge at a landfill. Now, also we've had the Selangor government announcing plans to gazette a forest reserve on which Orang Asli live and say belong to them. And those are just some of the stories that we've been seeing more and more lately. Stories of threats to Orang Asli rights and their way of life. Now, the Orang Asli make up about 1% of the population of Peninsula Malaysia, around 215,000 people. Orang Asli is an administrative category that comprises 18 ethnic groups or suku kaum. So, helping us shed light on the issues faced by the Orang Asli, we have joining us on the line Rizuan Tempek, Secretariat Member of Jaringan Kampung Orang Asli Semenanjung, Malaysia, which is a network of Orang Asli community in Peninsula Malaysia. Rizuan, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Now, I have to begin by asking for your opinion on whether you think the federal and state governments are failing the Orang Asli.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the platform and opportunity to share my views on behalf of GKUSM. I think the simple answer for that as a grassroots, as an Orang Asli who comes from the village is simply yes. And I can elaborate on that, on the fact that even our act, that the only law that is targeted, the specific law for Orang Asli, namely the Orang Asli Act or Akta 134, in the act itself, it provides for the establishment of Orang Asli areas and Orang Asli reserve, but at the same time, it also grants the state authorities the right to order any Orang Asli community to leave and stay out of an area. So this archaic law is very archaic. It should have been amended to make it better and holistic in terms of providing the real protection for the well-being and giving the right for Orang Asli to be in an area as their own land, customary land.
And customary land is a very interesting expression. Is it a failure of governments, whether under the Barisan Nasional and now with Pakatan Harapan, to truly live up to the promise of securing Orang Asli rights by institutionalizing native customary land? That many of the problems that we see today for the communities emanate from the insecurity that they have with regard to the land that they forage on or they have ancestral relationship with. Could you help us understand where this fight for native customary land is going? The
current trend for Orang Asli is that they have no choice but to bring the case to the court, like what we saw in the past, maybe more than 20 years, I think, because there's no other legal recourse than to take our matter to the courts. From what we've seen in Kampung Center in Widow Perak, they have tried to, because back then the case was with the Barisan National Government, they tried all other courts, writing letters, tried to sit with the government to explain about their land rights, to make them understand the distinct relationship between Orang Asli and their land, how their survival depends on the land, how their culture depends on the land, how their subsistence depends on the land, how they are spiritually intact or connected with the land. But I think the government still don't, maybe they refuse to grasp the concept that Orang Asli has our own distinct way of maybe relating or how say kaitankan diri kita dengan tanah lah. Our relationship with the land is very, very unique, very distinct in such a way that is how we relate to the land.
And I'm glad that you've brought that up, the relationship to the land. I think the customary land rights issue needs to be expanded further. But I also want to better understand the other issues, the other major issues that the community is facing. I mean, we often hear of a lack of basic amenities like water, like potable water and electricity. Can you shed some light as to some of the major issues that the community faces?
I think the basic amenities is just like a pinch of what Orang Asli is facing as a whole. Because for me, that is also showing that the government is not really taking Orang Asli seriously. I think when you look at Orang Asli villages, including my own villages, we have been there for hundreds of years, but we still don't have like proper water facility. Still have to depend on water from the jungle. Even then, we have to look for the resources in terms of piping or whatever by ourselves. And we have written to the government for assistance of pipe or any other forms of help. But the reason given is our village is too far from the nearby water processing facility, and it will be very costly to bring the water into our village. And how the allocation has already splitted, and they cannot allocate for our village anymore.
Yeah, I want to ask you very quickly, to wrap up our conversation, Rizuan, help us understand, the impact, the fact that you're a very small community, just 215,000 people around the peninsula. Barisan Nasional boasting recently of putting a Orang Asli candidate in the Cameron Highlands elections. Has he spoken up? Do politicians actually deliver on the promises they make to the Orang Asli community?
This is a very interesting point because pre-election during the campaign time, all these politicians would come to Orang Asli villages and reading their manifestos, including the Pakatan Harapan, when they did their manifestos in Perak and went to Orang Asli villages and disseminating their manifestos and promises that this is what they wanted to do when they win the general election. So what I have seen now is, as a grassroots Orang Asli, I haven't heard anything or seen any concrete plan laid out or disseminated publicly by the ministry or Jakwa in improving the well-being of Orang Asli. Yeah, I have seen news reports that the Minister of National Unity visited the sites of some Orang Asli affected by projects, extreme poverty, like the one you mentioned earlier, and the one when the disease outbreak happened in the Batik community, only perhaps because it has gone viral, and they have to cover up or have to make appearance and provide comfort and short-term relief or solution. But there is no long-term solution because we have this Suhakam National Inquiry, which is very comprehensive on what Orang Asli wants in terms of guaranteeing the land rights, guaranteeing our well-being, guaranteeing our development in terms of prior informed consent when it comes to land encroachment, land grabs, or whatever, which Orang Asli needs more than short-term solution. Right now, it doesn't matter who we voted for, BN or Pakatan. It seems like they are the same. They are not doing anything prominently life-changing for Orang Asli. It's more like short-term solution. We need land rights recognition. We need more holistic approach when it comes to development and well-being. It's not like touch here, touch there a bit, and not really provide an actual solution to our protected issues and problems that have been going on for decades.
That's really good. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Rizuan, sharing your experiences, speaking also for the community. Joining us on the line now, we have Shaq Koyok, who is an artist and Orang Asli activist. He himself is from the Temuan community. Shaq, thanks so much for being on the show. Now, you recently went on social media to highlight the threat that your own village faces after you came across a notice that the Kuala Langat Forest Reserve could be degazetted and converted for development. Now, could you help us understand just how big of a threat this will pose to your community?
Hello, thank you for calling me. And yes, me and my village is quite shocked to see that news in the newspaper, and then we feel like they never approach us. We feel like we never existed in the area, and then that particular gazette area, the forested area, actually is used to be my ancestor village before we moved to the new area where we are now, and there is a ancestor graveyard in there, and we also have quite a number of villagers who live in there, and they use that place as a base for them to practice their culture. So, I just read the news by the Chief Minister of Selangor. That he said that the area is not doesn't belong to Orang Asli. They said there's no black and white paper say that, but he actually wrong. And we have a proof that a black and white. This is the document I'm trying to refer to, and the government gazette area that's been done by the British colonizers during that time is in 1927, where they stated that area is belongs to the indigenous people to practice their culture and then to benefit to indigenous people who live nearby the forest. So,
Shaq, can I just jump in there? Can you explain to us why people have a hard time understanding, including the Menteri Besar Selangor, hard time understanding this idea of the way the community relates to the land? They seem to, so easily as the Menteri Besar did, dismiss the idea of foraging rights as if that meant nothing in terms of culture, spirituality, and all those other issues that have been highlighted.
I think it's a problem. It's come from education. Like I keep saying that, and I think another thing is this Chief Minister, he needs to go to the Orang Asli villages, for example, to my area, because it's not really far from the Shalam. If we really want to, and for anybody to learn about indigenous people, is even for me. If every time I have this kind of conference or talk, I find it really troubling because not many people know about indigenous people, and this make us really bad in this situation. Make us really vulnerable in this kind of situation. Because our connection to nature is far beyond that black and white, far beyond that you written, and you need to go there, explain yourself. And first of all, we don't have the what's it called? Like I said, history or stories be written in a textbook of a school, and that's actually where this problem started. It's another thing when the government doesn't recognize our rights and it doesn't recognize that kind of legal document, and that's this thing starts. This trouble starts. Yeah,
definitely a lack of education. Now, I'm wondering, Shaq, who's acting as a liaison, as a representative to perhaps communicate with politicians? Because I'm wondering whether the community still has trust for the politicians, whether there's a suspicion that perhaps the politicians are in fact in collusion with developers. Who is acting as a liaison to communicate between the two parts?
Well, we have I think it's Dr. Jayakumar. Dr. Xavier Jayakumar is an MP for the Kuala Langat area. He's been to my village quite a number of times already, and he's concerned that when the forest gone, we will lose our identity. We will lose our culture. It's the same thing what we feel. So we will lose our culture, and our young generation, our future to come, will lose the identity. I think that's a real threat for us now, and we don't. We're not talking about the damage to the ecosystem, damage to the habitat of wildlife, but we're talking about the connection of Orang Asli to the land itself. I think that's a very crucial now, and we cannot tell our children, our future, that that's where our ancestors came from. That's really, really troubling for me. And
Shaq, who are your allies in this fight? Very quickly, we have about a minute left. Who are your allies in advancing the rights of your community, of Orang Asli communities across the peninsula?
You know, when you're asking the question, I feel like I don't know who can we trust at the moment. It looks like politicians should be serve the people, but now politicians become backstabber for us. They stab our back, just behind our back. Because at the moment, I don't know who can we trust, and we just hope whole Malaysia know this situation. We hope everybody can, help us, because this is the only place that for me, for us to practice our culture, our history start from there, and we can't just deny that.
Right. Shaq, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate you spending time with us this evening. Now, that's all the time we have on the show today for Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me, Sharaad, Kuttan. We will be back with you same time tomorrow night for another episode of Consider This. Thank you for watching, and good night.